Let's say that you didn't find answers to your question in the existing research. Instead of charging ahead and starting to do research and gather data, talk to other people in your sector.
The next step is to get other people in the sector involved. Now, this is most likely going to be other orgs like you, but it might also be the people that fund you, or social scientists, or peak bodies. Now, this could be as simple as just having a coffee and talking about it, or it could be a really in-depth, multi-year process for gaining massive consensus. Most likely, it'll be something in the middle.
The aim is to get to a prioritized list of unanswered and important questions. Start by calling up other organizations in your sector. Explain what you're doing and ask for their input.
Here's the basic mechanism for doing this. First, we talk to a bunch of organizations like us. We elicit from them questions that they think are important to ask. We put them all together in a big list, figure out some way for people to vote on what are the most important questions for all of us, and then cut that list down into a succinct list that we can go and ask a researcher.
There's lots of ways to do this. Ideally, you physically convene people from other organizations and have a facilitated process, lots of post-it notes and voting. If that's not possible, you could do something similar online. But even getting together with a group of people in your sector over a coffee and hashing out priorities is a lot better than doing nothing.
Here's a really simple voting mechanism. Just list all of the questions, get everybody who's involved in voting, and let them just pick their favorite three. This will naturally bubble up the things that we think are the most important. Everything else is still important, but we need to narrow it down.
So you end up with a list. And maybe it has 10 questions on it, which would be useful for your sector to have answered. So when you start the process of soliciting questions from others in your sector, what they think are important unanswered research questions, you may be lucky and get only sensible research questions submitted. More likely is that you will get all manner of stuff, kind of essays, and sometimes they're sort of autobiographies of here's what happened to me and my doctor did this and da-da-da-da. It's useful at that stage to be very open and just let people send you what they want to send you, and then you do the filtering of it.
You get everything from thoughtful, precise questions to like mini bios. And the important thing is you just write these down somewhere. We've got a little spot in the template, you can keep them. Now, below that in our template is a spot for a list of only 10 questions. How you get to 10 questions with your group is totally up to you. So if you've ever tried to do inter-organization collaboration, it's super hard. How do we make it work for everyone?
It's really important in that process that everybody knows what the rules are in advance and that it's fair. So these are the kinds of questions that are in scope. Be very clear about what the scope is. Be very clear about who is allowed to contribute questions and who isn't. Be very clear about how you're going to determine whether a question is still unanswered, and be very clear about who is allowed to vote in the prioritization and how the voting process is going to work. Because everybody whose favorite question doesn't end up on the prioritized list needs to understand why their question hasn't got on the prioritized list.
Now, if you want to have a long read about a really in-depth process for doing this well, the James Lind Alliance has this like 60-page PDF on how to gain consensus. Most organizations, however, will benefit from just getting a bunch of other leaders from other orgs in a room together.
Talk to funders and researchers, and particularly funders who fund research. Talk to them early in the process, because ideally you are going to take your prioritized list to them. Involve the umbrella bodies or peak bodies if you have them in your sector, as well as funders and social science researchers. This makes sure that people with very different perspectives can have their input. There is a dynamic in the nonprofit sector which sometimes can discourage charities and social enterprises from disclosing what their interventions really are. The process that we're describing in this lesson is quite different to what goes on normally. And it's arisen because we've seen so much wastage of monitoring and evaluation time and budget and effort. So it will be somewhat unfamiliar. You want to bring together people within your sector to prioritize answer questions. You will need to explain to them a bit about what you are doing and why, what you are asking of them and what you are not asking of them.
So this is like a whole bunch of just talking to other organizations. But at the end, you should have a pretty concise list of the 10 or so questions that you all believe are worth answering. You should also have an understanding of which aligned funders or institutions are also interested in answering these questions. And now you might be thinking, but entrepreneurship is like a fast thing, right? You know, we get stuff done in weeks, not years, and research is going to take months or years to get done. Well, therein lies the social in social entrepreneurship. These questions are about problems that are bigger than your organization or your product or even your career. So by getting involved in answering these big, long questions, it means that we know we're heading in the right direction whilst making all the short-term mistakes with product and methodology and pricing and all that other fun stuff.
No matter which method you use, the goal is the same: to ensure that we ask important questions and then answer them reliably. Then the whole sector can use the answers to better serve their beneficiaries.